All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Running with Wolves. We are going to talk about something that I am about to nerd out so hard on. You guys don't even understand. We are going to talk about my favorite thing, which is data-driven marketing. Like, you're joking. I could just gush over data all the time. It was so funny. I posted on TikTok or Threads. I posted on Threads the other day, and I don't know if you guys have seen like the TikToks where it's like, I'm like a flower, sparkle, unicorn emoji marketing girly, and it's talking about like visuals and pretty content and stuff. And then you have the other TikToks where it's like, I'm a graphs, calculator, nerd glasses, like marketing girly, and it's all about representing like data and stuff. And I was like, I am both of those together. And I think it's so important that we start to understand that you should be both of those things. You should have beautiful, visually capturing marketing and powerful content. But if you don't know how to identify your marketing and sales data, if you don't know how to read it, translate it, and infuse it into your strategy, you're essentially creating more work for yourself because you're having to reinvent the wheel over and over and over again and create new content ideas to see what lands with your audience. And you're essentially going back to the starting point every time you create content. Your data, when you use it correctly, tells you exactly what your audience wants to hear. If I put out 10 posts and I looked at my marketing and sales data and 2 of them performed really well, engaged really well, and drove the most conversions, I'm not then going to go and invent 10 more content ideas that I want to talk about. I am going to stick to, or at least make 2 of my content pillars, those 2 things that my audience, because of the data, told me, hey, that's exactly what we want to hear. I'm going to listen to my audience say, okay, you guys really liked this, so I'm going to keep creating content that's very similar to this to drive these same results. If I went and created 10 new pieces of content, I would be, number one, ignoring what my audience is telling me they want to see, which means I'm ignoring what makes them buy, which is ultimately going to create me more money. But I'm also creating more work for myself because then I have to brainstorm all new content ideas. The thing that I love about data is it cuts down on your marketing and sales like strategic work significantly because it enables you to know exactly what your audience wants to hear from you, so you can reincorporate that into your content over and over and over again. So you literally have like 10 things on the attraction side, on the warming side, and the converting side where you're like, hey, I know my audience loves to hear all of these things. Let's create new, fresh, fun ideas in each of these content pillars and start posting it. There's no guessing work. It doesn't take you extra time to brainstorm content ideas, and it's so easy to do. So, like I said, I could nerd out on this all day, all night, but I want to talk about the different types of data that you can collect in your marketing and in your sales. And I also want to talk about how to translate that to effectively make marketing and sales decisions. So when we talk to our clients about collecting data, there's a couple things that we talk about. Number one, there's data that we talk about that you're going to pull basically before you even start marketing and selling. This is really around market research, competitor analysis. This is going to tell you everything you need to know about your audience before you start talking to them. So it's a great starting place, but it is not everything. A big mistake I see a lot of business owners make is that a lot of times they will do market research, do competitor analysis, they'll create a strategy based on that, and they'll set it and kind of forget it essentially. But what that means is you are essentially ignoring what your audience is actually saying to you and focusing on what you think your audience wants to hear. What you think your audience wants to hear and what they actually want to hear could potentially be 2 totally different things. Could they be the same? Absolutely. If you're right on the money with your market research, your data analysis, your competitor analysis, etc., you could actually never have to tweak your strategy for a very, very long time. But the problem is that if you are not constantly listening to your audience, there is a good chance that what they want to hear from you could shift or change or be different from what you initially thought, and you're completely ignoring that. So just collecting that information in the very beginning isn't enough. If you guys want to learn more about like market research or competitor analysis or any of those things, we have an entire episode dedicated to that. So you are welcome to go listen to that. It's going to tell you the exact questions to ask your audience, how to do competitor analysis, etc. So you want to obviously do pre-marketing and sales data collection. But you also, as you are consistently marketing yourself, want to be collecting data on each part of our framework. So we talk about the Wolf framework, which is attract, warm, convert. And it's important to pull data for each of those phases so you can understand exactly what it is that people are wanting to see in each of those phases. So obviously, you need to understand what content falls into what categories that you're posting. So for us, we post on TikTok, Instagram, and we do email marketing. So TikTok is going to be attraction and warming content. Instagram is primarily going to be warming or converting content, and same with email. So for us, we wouldn't look at Instagram and email and be like, what's attracting our audience in the most? No, that's what we're going to pull from TikTok. From Instagram, we're going to pull what's engaging our audience the most and what's causing them to actually inquire. For product-based businesses, it would be what's attracting our audience in, what's engaging them, what's driving them to our website, and then what's causing them to actually add to cart and purchase. And another thing you want to think about with product-based businesses is abandoned cart rate. So if you see your abandoned cart rate go down, that's a great indicator that whatever you're doing in your marketing is probably working. So with the attraction phase, you want to be looking at performance of your content. Remember, think about the purpose of each phase of the Wolf framework, and that's typically the data you want to be looking at. So attract is obviously getting in front of as many eyes as possible. It's visibility, performance of content. The warming phase is all about engaging your audience and turning them into like really raving fans for your brand or for your business. So we want to see, are they binging our content? And if they're not binging your content, how can they turn into raving fans? And on the conversion side, obviously that's going to be inquiries, website traffic, purchases, or investments. And so a lot of times, if you're not seeing those things, you probably have a conversion issue. So for us, on the attraction side, we're going to be looking at content performance, what content is performing the best. And with each of these phases, you want to ask yourself, why? Why is it performing the best? Is it the format of content? Is it the topic you talked about? Is it the audio that you used? Is it the keywords that you used? Is it the visual hook that you used, right? What was it that caused that piece of content to perform so well? Same thing with the warming phase. You want to look at engagements. This is comments, likes, saves, shares. You also want to look at profile views because the goal of the warming phase is to get people to go to your profile and binge your content. So you want to see how many people are visiting our profile every single day, how many people are binging our content every single day. And again, ask yourself the question, why? If a piece of content drove a ton of profile views, why? Format, topic, any of those things we just mentioned. Same thing on the conversion side of things. You want to look at number of inquiries. You want to look at website traffic percentages. You want to look at abandoned cart rate. You want to look at actual conversions and sales, purchases, or investments. And so from there, sometimes you have to cross-reference your marketing data and your sales data. So for example, if I had a massive uptick in inquiries on one day, one specific day, I'm going to go back and look at, okay, what content did we post on that day? And was it typically something that our audience really likes to hear? And why did it drive that many inquiries? For us, we already know anytime we do some really spicy objection handling, anytime we do a piece of social proof, anytime we call people out that have been stalking our DMs or our offers for a really long time, that drives inquiries. And so consistently, you're going to see us putting that in our content because we know that it converts our audience really well. We were able to pull that data a long, long time ago, translate why that data was happening. That's what we found. And so now we've refined our strategies to be able to create a lot of those converting pillars because we know that that's what works for our audience. So you want to look at all of that data across the board. You also want to do some A/B testing. So for us, this looked like once we had refined what the topic was that was really heavily either converting or warming or attracting for our audience, that's where we're going to refine it even more. So we want to know if we say it this way versus this way, which performs better? If we do this format versus this format, which performs better? You want to find the constant, and then you want to find the other things that are going to flex. So for us, a lot of times, the constant of what is going to drive that data is typically the topic. And then from there, you can A/B test on the format of content. You can A/B test around the keywords that you use, the hooks that you use, verbal and visual, the call to actions that you use. You can, do A/B testing with like audios or, B-roll videos or any of those things, right? Podcast videos, again, format of content. And see, now that we've known that this topic consistently attracts, warms, or converts our audience really well, what can we do to make it do that even more? So you can do A/B testing there. So I want to talk about some of the tools that we use for collecting and analyzing data. So there are a lot of different ways that you can pull data. What we have found is that, like most things in terms of systems and processes, how we pull data is a mixture of automations and manual data pulling, because sometimes you're just not going to get all the information that you need from one system. So for example, when you are pulling analytics, right? If you are going to go to Instagram and you're going to look at the content that has given you the top engagement, you can pull the most engaged with posts. You can pull the content that has performed the best. But what it's not going to pull is why. So a lot of times that's where you're going to have to pull the initial analytics just through the platform. And then that's where you can go in and further kind of understand why the data is what it is and give a deeper report. So a lot of times these reporting tools, like any of the social media platforms, any of the posting platforms, any of the scheduling platforms, ManyChat, any of those things that are going to give you numbers and data and analytics, it's going to give you topical information that you have to then go in and kind of translate and understand why it did the things that it did. So you can gather, obviously, all of those analytics from all of the social media platforms. If you want to see everything all in one place, obviously you can use things like ManyChat. You can use things like Later. You can use things, like all of those scheduling platforms to pull that information for you. Or if you don't want to invest into any systems or processes, on a weekly and monthly basis, go into all of your marketing platforms and just pull that data. It's super, super easy. Create a spreadsheet, nothing crazy, go in and manually analyze it. So let's really quickly talk about how often you should be analyzing and reviewing and collecting your data. So like I just said, typically what we look for is pulling weekly data, monthly data, quarterly, and yearly data. So you are going to be pulling data on all marketing platforms on a weekly basis, meaning you're going to be collecting data on what performed the best, meaning you're going to be collecting data on what engaged the best, converted the best, etc. And then on a monthly basis is when we want to look for trends and themes. I see a lot of people make the mistake of pulling information and data on a weekly basis and analyzing that for trends and themes, meaning like what's performing the best, and using that to refine their strategies. That is not enough time for us to see if that's really a trend or a theme. For example, a year ago, I created a video on TikTok that was "The Old Era of Marketing is Dead." And we talked through a lot of the points that we typically make when it comes to "The Old Era of Marketing is Dead." It performed insanely well. I'm talking like 600,000 views or something. We also had another video that popped off that was my CEO morning routine that hit 1 million views. So we had a lot of videos popping off right around that time. If I had just looked at that week's worth of trends, I would have said, these are the exact videos we need to be posting constantly to drive this kind of visibility, engagement, and inquiries. But what we then did was we retested those same videos almost to a T about, I would say, 90 days later, and it did not perform the way that it did the first time. And the reason being is because it was already information that we had given to our audience and that we talked about consistently. It was too topical at that point. The first time we posted that video ever, it was not new information to our audience, but it was new from us, right? It was a new post, it was a new thought, it was a new concept. And so it created a lot of engagement and a ton of views. The second time around, because it felt like basically an iteration of information that they'd already been given from us, it didn't connect as well. But then what we've done is taken that same concept and topic and tied it to client stories. We've tied it to pop culture references. We've stitched different brands' TikToks where they're using an old era of marketing. And we've made that same point, and it has performed so well Number one, because of the format of content, but number two, because we're giving new context. So if I basically took just that week's worth of data, I would be screwed in terms of my sales because my marketing strategy isn't going to be what my audience wants to hear. My audience wants to hear, yes, that same concept, but they want to hear it in new, different, exciting, unique ways. They don't want to hear the same thing over and over again. So that's why we, on a monthly basis and a quarterly basis and a yearly basis, should be looking at marketing and sales data to assess and analyze different trends and themes. It's so important, obviously, to do it, yes, every week, but you want to look at longer periods of time before you make massive decisions in your marketing and sales. Typically, I would say post for about 90 days and then see what's working and what's not and refine from there. And it's not because you can't see results before 90 days. If you're doing marketing and sales correctly, a lot of times you do see results really quickly. However, you don't want to make decisions about your strategy until about after 90 days. So I want to give you guys an example of a time that we really looked at our marketing and sales data, and it honestly saved our butt when it came to creating sales. And I use this example a lot, but I think it's very powerful. So, and it also just goes to show that just because you're a marketing and sales expert doesn't mean you're going to get it right the first time, every single time. You have to. I just had a conversation with somebody, Ken Delaney, who was a guest on our podcast episode, and something that she said really stuck with me because it's something we talk to our clients about all the time, but it's just good to be reminded of. You cannot get so emotionally tied to what it is that you're seeing in terms of results or a lack of results, whether it's a success or a failure, quote unquote. You can't get emotionally tied to it. It's just data that you then understand what went right or what went wrong, and you can change from there. So for us, about a year and a half ago, we launched for the very first time our accelerator program. Now, this is now our bread and butter. This is our signature program. And when we first launched it, we made a very crucial mistake that we actually teach people not to make. But again, you can be a marketing and sales expert and not get it right every time. So when we first launched the accelerator, we didn't look at our marketing and sales data. We didn't do market research. We didn't do competitor analysis because what we thought was, oh, you know what? Even though it's a new program, people have been asking for something like this for so long. Of course, easily they're going to buy. We aren't really going to need to talk about a whole lot other than what we already talk about, and we'll just drive people to this program instead of our others. LOL, were we wrong? So launch day came and went. We launched, and that entire week, I think we got 5 inquiries, and all of them were very much lukewarm, on the fence, weren't excited about the program, which was very abnormal for us. Typically, when we launch something, it is an onslaught of leads just scrambling to really try to basically get their hands on what it is that we're selling. So for us, we were very freaked out by this experience of like, oh my gosh, what is going on? So I remember having a conversation with my business coach after a week of basically silence during our launch, being like, what is going on? Do I need to change the program? Is this just not what people are looking for right now? Like, what's going on? And what she said always stuck with me, which is, again, something we tell our clients all the time, but it's just good to be reminded of, which is typically 9 times out of 10, when you're not seeing sales, it's the promotion of the product that's the issue, not the product itself. So we started talking, and what I realized through our conversation was that we had completely skipped over the market research and the prep phase, right, to our strategy, to our launch. We didn't actually understand our target audience for this offer. We weren't talking about their problems and their desires in the way that they were experiencing them. We definitely were not talking about the offer, creating trust around it, even though it was a new offer, because in my brain, I was like, oh, they already trust our brand. So any new offer that we create is going to be a no-brainer for them. Absolutely not. It's a new offer. It doesn't have like a guaranteed quote unquote ROI. It doesn't have tried and true social proof for people to see, wow, this has been around for so long, blah, blah, blah. So we didn't incorporate that, any offer awareness. We also weren't talking about why they needed this now, the timing of it, right? So there was so much that we didn't incorporate into our marketing strategy that was crucial for creating sales. And so by the time we went back to the drawing board, we revamped our entire strategy after looking at that data. And after doing more market research and competitor analysis, we totally flipped our content strategy. And within literally a couple of days of doing that, we had created 6 figures in sales in 24 hours. All because we knew to look at our marketing data, to look at our sales data, and to very clearly tell, based on historic launches, something's wrong. Our audience is not acting the way that they should. I don't know what's going on, but something is wrong. So for us, if we did not have a firm grasp on our marketing and sales data, if we weren't tracking it consistently, if we weren't watching it consistently, we would have had no clue how to turn things around until it was too late. And we weren't able to kind of salvage that situation. And because we knew how to look at our marketing and sales data, we created $100,000 in sales in 24 hours, you guys. That is an insane result, all because of your marketing and sales data. So please, when I tell you, understand how crucial marketing and sales data is to a successful, consistent revenue. And if you don't know how to pull marketing and sales data, what data to pull, what to look at, how to translate it, how to use it to refine your strategy, girl, we gotta talk. Like, slide your questions into our DMs because I wanna help you guys, honestly. So hopefully this episode was helpful in really understanding all of those things. But if you still don't know how to put it together, DM us. Otherwise, leave your questions in the comments below and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye, guys.